Wish TV. All Indiana Politics
is your premier source for Indiana politics.
Focusing on issues that matter to you.
In-depth, nonpartisan coverage, exclusive interviews with Indiana's political leaders, expert analysis on critical legislation. From Wish TV, this is All Indiana Politics Podcast on the All Indiana Podcast Network. Your day moves fast. Your news should too. That's why there's a new and improved Wish TV app, bringing you more local news, breaking alerts, live streaming, weather forecast, radar, and Indiana sports, all in one place. Customize your news feed to see the stories that matter most to you and get the information you need when you need it. Download the new and improved Wish TV app today on iOS or Android and take News 8 with you everywhere. Now, from your local news source, this is All Indiana Politics.
Congressman Andre Carson says his constituents want permanent daylight saving time. Hello, everyone. Welcome to All Indiana Politics. I'm Phil Sanchez. Carson voted along with the entire Indiana delegation in the U.S. House in favor of a bill to make daylight saving time permanent. He talked to Garrett Berquist. We begin our conversation by asking about his reaction to President Donald Trump's address to the nation on Thursday night. For reference, here's what the president had to say about election security.
Because no country can be great without fair and honest elections. You have to trust your country, because if there can be no trust, there can be no greatness. And that's very simple. No trust, no greatness. For many years, I've called for bold, swift, and decisive action to protect the integrity of America's elections. Every American deserves to know that when they cast their vote, that vote will be counted accurately in a system, and that is to make that system secure.
Well, let's bring in Congressman Andre Carson. Congressman, welcome back to the show.
What an honor. Thank you.
I want to begin with President Trump's speech on Thursday night, in which he claimed China tried to influence the 2020 election, and he also claimed that voter rolls contained large numbers of non-citizen voters. I should point out that numerous reviews of that election, including by his own attorney general at the time, found no evidence to support his claims of widespread voter fraud. You serve on both the House Intelligence Committee and the Committee on Strategic Competition between the U.S. and the Chinese Communist Party. Have you had a chance to review the documents the White House has released? What do you make of the claims?
He's telling on himself. He's already revealing his strategy for this year's election. We saw what happened on January 6th, and so I think he's trying to create the same tenor and environment that we saw, unfortunately, years ago. And so he's preparing for what seems to be trending toward Democrats taking the House. He's trying to prepare his core base and make an excuse to divert from his failings.
Have you had a chance to review the documents that the White House has released? What do you make of them?
Well, again, I mean, China has always been a threat. I sit on both committees of jurisdiction. I think it's of deep concern. I think the greater concern is that while China is our largest opponent, arguably next to Russia, they still have a very strong influence campaign online in terms of influencing our dialogue, in terms of influencing what's happening with data centers. And I think in a very real sense, what we saw years ago under his first administration, we're seeing again. They are running an influence campaign, unapologetically so, to influence the outcome of this election. However, Donald Trump does not help his cause with his policies, with the fact that MAGA Republicans have fallen in line with his policies. And so he's trying to make excuses to prepare the Republican caucus for what seems to be trending toward a defeat.
Let's turn to the airstrikes on Iran. Based on the briefings you've received, what is the current status of Iran's nuclear program, including its stockpile of enriched uranium?
Well, what I will say is that we're trying very hard. We're working with our partners in the Arab League and the global community to coming to an agreement. Iran has obviously not been happy with the terms of the agreement. instability in the region has increased markedly. But I will say that as we go forward with negotiations, the global community is deeply concerned. This has caused gas prices to skyrocket. It has caused fuel prices to skyrocket. It has also caused so much instability in the region that our partners want to resolve this issue. But this is a war that Trump started himself without going before Congress, making an appeal. He's going to have to face that reality. Now, he's tried to reset the clock, the 60-day window, by his announcement the other day, but he still has to go before Congress and the American people to make the case.
Have we reached the limit of what we can do from the air?
I won't say that, given the sensitive nature of the topic. But what I will say is that obviously I'm confident in our capabilities, but I'm disappointed in the fact that we had to start an unnecessary war. This administration started an unnecessary war, all for political gain and misinformation. And in the end, it has backfired, and the American people are suffering the most.
What do you make of the current strategy of targeting bridges and power plants?
Well, that's a common strategy. It's a common military tactic. I think diplomacy should be paramount. We saw diplomacy under the Obama administration with the JCPOA agreement. We had our partners, the P5+1 partners coming to the table. China was included, and we had a deal. What we're seeing now is Donald Trump attempting to employ a top-down approach. And, you know, if this were one of his companies, that would be different. This is the government. He is the chief executive officer. He has to come before equal but separate branches of government to make his appeal before the American people. He has yet to do so.
Why did you vote on Wednesday for an amendment to strip $3.3 billion worth of aid from Israel?
Well, Israel has been a strategic partner to the U.S. for decades now. I think that the American people are fed up with seeing their taxpayer dollars fund a genocide in an apartheid state. I think the protests that we've seen, led by Jewish brothers and sisters all across the country, has spoken to the concern that taxpayers have. But Israel is a very wealthy nation now. I think that Israel can come to the table and whatever negotiations they want to make with our country, like any other client state, in terms of weaponry, they should do so. But they should not get unbridled dollars without any provisions or restrictions or demands blindly. And Israel is an independent nation. And I think that they have to act in the way that other client states act at this point in the process. And so in the event we talk about a two-state solution, folks are now talking about a 23-state solution, which was introduced by the Arab League, that I think more countries are open to. We'll see what happens.
The entire Indiana delegation in the House voted for the bill to make daylight saving time permanent. Why did you support it?
Well, as someone who has always had to get up early in the morning to go to work, I think I'm wired to be a nighttime person. But also, I've looked at study after study. I've spoken to constituents about it. Most folks seem to be in support of it. Now, I have seen some very persuasive studies against it, but for the most part, I think the people want this.
Why permanent daylight time instead of permanent standard time?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, based on what I've seen from the experts, based on what we've heard from constituents and friends and folks in and out of Indiana, they seem to think that this is the best approach.
Back in 1974, Congress did put the United States on permanent daylight savings time for a few months, and then that was repealed. And one of the concerns that led to that repeal was children having to go to school during very dark hours in the winter and potentially getting hit by cars. Yeah. And then another concern that's been raised is possibly that we might need to use more time zones in the United States. For example, because like here in Indiana, we're on the extreme western edge of the eastern time zone. What do you make of those concerns?
Well, I remember having been on Central Time Zone. I remember having to catch the bus, and it was dark, but this, of course, was in the winter time. You know, when we made the switch, maybe 15.
All right, coming up, the governor ends a long-running program meant to help minority and women-owned businesses. We ask about the rationale behind that decision. Welcome back. back. Governor Mike Braun has ended Indiana's supplier diversity program. It was designed to help minority and women-owned businesses. Our Tim Spears caught up with the governor, the Attorney General, and the Indiana Black Expo.
The Attorney General's office issued this formal advisory opinion saying the program gives preferential treatment based on race and sex, making it unconstitutional.
The issue has never been about capability. It has been about access to opportunity.
The Indiana Black Expo pauses its summer celebration event to condemn Governor Mike Braun's announcement that Indiana is moving to what he calls a merit-based approach to public contracts.
It's a dog whistle. And it's a dog whistle that's opening the door for national politics to creep into what we do here in Indiana.
Indiana has not faced a single lawsuit over the DBE program, but now, based on the opinion from the Attorney General's office, Governor Mike Braun said he's phasing out consideration of race or sex in public contracts, despite it being state law.
It's just getting us in a place to where we're not going to be handicapped by something that got confusing and no longer probably had currency.
Governor Braun took aim at diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives during his first month in office, issuing an executive order for state agencies to replace DEI with MEI, or Merit, Excellence, and Innovation. Indiana Democrats argue the governor is now essentially changing state law by executive order.
Who were the victims of this law? Nobody sued saying they were a victim. So is the victim the white race?
Well, by definition of the program, Caucasian people have a less of an opportunity, right? Because you're giving preferential treatment to women or based on gender or race. So it has to be an even playing field.
A staffer for Attorney General Todd Rokita said the DBE program could also disadvantage other minority groups not included in the law, like Pacific Islanders. Rokita said he's ready to defend the governor's decision in court.
We believe in a colorblind opportunity.
Tim Spears, Indiana's I-Team.
Now, Braun's order creates a new Indiana small business program. Administration officials say it's designed to give small businesses a chance at state contracts. They say the program likely will capture many of the same companies that qualified for the old supplier diversity program. The governor's order directs state agencies to continue to honor the terms of existing contracts. Coming up, Indiana's best political team weighs conflict of interest questions surrounding Indiana's new Secretary of Commerce and a rare veto from the mayor of Indianapolis.
The opinions expressed by guests on this broadcast are solely of those of the individual speaking and do not necessarily reflect the views or policies of Circle City Broadcasting.
Back to All Indiana Politics as we welcome in two members of Indiana's best political team, Democrat Lindsay Hake and Republican Whitley Yates. Good to see you both. Thank you so much for being here. All right, so the Braun administration has discontinued the supplier diversity program. We talked about it earlier in the show. Whitley, has the administration's claims that a new small business program will still include minority-owned businesses, does that go far enough, and is that realistic?
I think that having a new program that focuses on small businesses is realistic.
Okay.
However, when we look at the disparity study that the state does, I think every 4 years, we notice that minority and women-owned businesses still lag behind, although they are still considered small businesses. So I am waiting to see how this program is going to impact the disparities that already currently exist. But I am hopeful because there were issues with the supplier diversity program as an MBE, WBE certified business with the state of Indiana. It needed something different. However, not knowing what that something different is does leave everybody in limbo.
Lindsay, how do you see this thing playing out?
Yeah, I agree with Whitley. I'll tell you, though, I really hope that the governor's office includes the legislature in this conversation, because many legislators have noted that there's been long wait times to get your certification. There have been a lot of rigmarole waiting to get into this program, and that has served as a barrier, really, to have more in the program who obviously need it. And I also think, really, this is a petty move move by the governor, by Governor Braun's administration, I'm sorry, to do it on the day of Black Expo. And then, of course, Pride Month, taking the nuclear family effort on June 1. This is just poor management of implementation of policies. Involve everyone, make the program better. Let's inspire new small business to be involved.
Whitley, want to respond quickly before we move on?
No, I mean, I understand why she has that position, and I think what we've seen from community outcry is that a lot of members, specifically of the minority community and the business community, are raising alarms as to what is next and the fear of not knowing. I don't think it was strategic with the Black Expo, but also coincidences don't come too often. And so I think we have to look at the optics of the way that we're impacting business as a whole in the state.
Okay, another big topic of the week was Indiana's new Secretary of Commerce, Chuck Goodrich, will remain CEO of Gaylor Electric and Fishers. Now, that company has some ongoing state incentives, as you guys know. It also has contracts with the state, including at the State House. Lindsay, should Goodrich maybe resign from the company or at least take a leave of absence?
Yeah, take a breather, let the state process work itself out with oversight, and having a role in that organization chart is simply a bad move for Secretary Goodrich. I think you could have stronger ethics and conflict of interest policies at the State House that would prohibit this from even happening.
Optics again here coming into play here. Yeah. Whitley, what do you think?
I think that this is a really great opportunity. I was thinking about this in terms of if it were me and someone said, okay, you can't hold this role and be the CEO of your company and do all of these other things. And I really believe that opportunity, specifically in the state of Indiana, is at the intersection of having the experience coupled with what you can do for the state. And so as the Secretary of Commerce, he's not just going to be speaking from a place of the past of what he has done, but what he is actively doing. And I think it's going to be a good way to recruit more businesses to come here when you have a CEO that lives the day-to-day experience of the business world, telling you that Indiana is a great place for you to not only grow your business, but to plant your business here.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So another big story, of course, Indianapolis Mayor Joe Hogsett vetoing a proposal to raise the wheel tax in Marion County. Whitley, I'll go to you on this one. How unusual is this veto? And what does it say about the relationship between Hogsett and the council?
I don't often agree with Hogsett.
Here we go.
But you're going to.
I do agree that he should veto the wheel tax. I think right now, with affordability at the top of mind of so many Hoosiers and people around the country, when we're thinking about increasing taxes, we have to be strategic. That goes to say, I need to see a plan from the Hogsett administration about how we are going to fund infrastructure projects and the much needed infrastructure projects around potholes in Indianapolis. But I do think right now, as people are struggling with affordability, that vetoing any new taxes is a good move, unfortunately.
And part of the money, the thing is here, Lindsay, as you know, they need the money so they can get the money from the state as well to help with, to match. So how do is there a way they can raise it without raising taxes?
I mean, that remains to be seen, but you're also up against a strict deadline here that's expressly outlaid in House Enrolled Act 1461 that enabled this match money. And so I think you'll see, rather than exploring and picking and choosing and taking the time that you'll have to cob together a plan, to use this plan that's already in motion, that's ready to go, that was bankrolled by, that was put in place by the State House majority leadership.
Right.
And to make sure that we inspired some action here in the city of Indianapolis, I think you'll see the council move forward with a veto override and have finally some reasonable policy that was put together in a bipartisan fashion at both ends of Market Street.
To the politics of it all, before I move on to this next question, why do you think Hogsett vetoed it?
That's a question for Hogsett.
Okay, well, there you go. Fair answer. Let's talk about something that I really like, this daylight saving time, making it permanent. Okay, so as you guys know, every member of Indiana's delegation voted for it. Lindsay, I'll start with you. What are the chances that this finally ends us changing the clocks?
Ooh, I don't know, man. This is harkening back to some childhood times of when I lived in Michigan, we had come to visit family in Indiana, and all of a sudden we're like, why are we changing this clock back? Indiana seems to be, a century behind. I'm here for it. I think it should move forward. I'm not necessarily sure that that I see the viewpoint of an opposing view on this. I just don't. It's time to move forward and also make it safer for folks who are waiting at the bus early in the morning.
Yeah, Whitley?
you know, while people are struggling to keep the lights on, let's have as much daylight as we can. I am pro daylight savings time. Let's go ahead and make it permanent. I'm tired of springing forward, falling back, springing forward, falling back. Let's get on standard time and continue to move forward. I think it's safer for the children. I have an 11-year-old, and so I think we have to think about that in the totality of things. So I'm rooting for the Senate to go ahead and move this along so we can have some permanency with the way the sun comes up and the way the sun sets.
You brought up the safety issue. Expand upon that a little bit, both of you, quickly. I have 30 seconds.
I'll say that we've seen time and time again children waiting on bus stops or walking to the bus stops being hit, specifically in Indianapolis early in the morning in the dark. And I think when we're talking about school safety, a lot of times it's focused on what's happening in school, but there are safety issues before they get to school.
Okay. Unfortunately, we're out of time.
I
agree. See you both. Yeah, I know you do. Thank you so much for being here, and we will be right back.
The opinions expressed by guests on this broadcast are solely of those of the individual speaking and do not necessarily reflect the views or policies of Circle City Broadcasting.
Thank you for joining us for All Indiana Politics this week. Of course, we'll be back here next Sunday. Have a great rest of your weekend.
From Wish TV, this is All Indiana Politics Podcast on the All Indiana Podcast Network. Watch All Indiana Politics live Sunday mornings at 9:30 on Wish TV and at wishtv.com. Subscribe to this podcast and listen weekly here on the All Indiana Podcast Network. And be sure to discover even more great podcasts at allindianapodcastnetwork.com.